Good evening, free enterprise fans, and welcome to a late night and or early morning race between Sorbius and frankiebones, match one of the best of three of round 8 of the Moon Waning bracket. I'm joined today on the restream by Alchemy Restream, Fried Potato Tracking, and in the booth with me, Clover, doing commentary. How are you doing this evening, Clover?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to see our big challenge here set up for our two very talented runners of resisting the urge to sleep. All those pillows we need to conquer, I think, should make for a really interesting seed.
You know, it makes you wonder how many they can get through before they just fall asleep.
Definitely. So, but definitely two very good runners here, make it showing a lot of skill to make it this deep into the tournament. So I'm really excited to see this one. I think they'll be able to put on a really good show for us here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very curious to see if their approach to racing is going to change it all out of a best of three. You know, it's not a long competition, but you do have a little bit of wriggle room. It's not win or go home. So I wonder if that will inform any routing decisions, any boss checks, anything like that. But it'll be really interesting to see how they approach the seed.
Yeah, definitely win that best of three. Definitely a low chance to maybe in the first game, just play how you might normally, or this is your chance maybe to take some big risks. So it'll be interesting to see how both these two runners use that game three. Really interesting, especially discuss after them kind of what they were thinking to do that. So I think it'll be a fun time.
Indeed, indeed. Got a little bit of a check here, but I'm really liking frankiebones' theme here, where we're gonna have a lot of trouble determining which characters which just by the text box. But nonetheless, giving us some free enterprise late night action. Very pleased to be able to bring this on a restream at this time.
Definitely will always be fun there with a little bit of repeating those names, but good to have a late night race. And I was enjoying Sorbius here, his naming scheme, also a fun one. So, did you happen to catch who is our starting character there?
You know, I did not, and about the only boss I caught was Water Hag. Now, Water Hag is not a lone
Ooh,
1%
okay.
like it is in the Red Moon seed. It is more probable in the Blue Moon bracket, but very, very fun to see a free boss as one to be hunted. Makes it feel at least a little bit better. You're going to have a little bit of an easier time.
Definitely, I'm sure runners are excited to see at least one free boss for them to handle. Because that one more to get in when you do find it. One, side relief of you found an easy boss, and two, you found a required boss. Here we go. Sid starts, definitely interesting there. Comes in at a very high level. So that can definitely be good for the early part of the game, although, tends to not be the strongest late game party member.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting situation. You know, he has some flexibility with the use of bows and axes. You can back row him easily, and he comes at a high level from the get-go. Now, with the Sea flag on, it will be a little bit more problematic. We're not sure what he's going to come equipped with, but having a little bit of early firepower can get you through some early checks.
Yeah, and looking here through the remainder of the bosses here, we have elements from Gante, CPU, and a few more. But kind of nice game, both Ruby and elements there, which is now if you see that one sprite, you have one of your target bosses. Definitely gonna help us out there.
Well, Team Melee to start with a Dark Elf
Mhm.
in the Bygone spot and a package to start. Now, that's an interesting one. Not a very common check. You do have a boss behind it. It's a very long cutscene to get through, but with a start, I'm curious, Kulfer, would you check that right away?
Probably not. Just as you kind of noted, it is a long cutscene. So do you really want to commit that time? That feels like one of those kind of high risk checks you might do, and that tends to be a lot more appealing. I find if you've done something into the seed that you feel has put you behind, you've made some mistakes somewhere at some point in time, and you know you need something to catch up. That's where you kind of like those high risk plays of checking the package, especially since we don't get a character here, and we see both our runners liking character checks and heading right over to Mysidia to find two more members of the party.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things with the see no free or no earned flag on. You get free characters. We see Edge, so we are Team Melee to start here, and the second best exit mage next to Cecil, Atella as well here in Mysidia.
Yeah, definitely. It is nice to get that tell early for exit, as you kind of mentioned right there, being able to get out of all those early game dungeons nice and quickly. And hey, he has a lot of utility too. Even right out of the gate, exit and blink are really nice. And then if you finish ordeals, just getting that complete spell list, Tella's not a bad member of the team at all. And with Team Melee, you want someone who can cast Berserk until he's starting those focus ones.
Absolutely. Between Berserk and Blink, Tilla has an absolute ton of utility. On Frankie Bone's side, seeing a Dwarf Axe in the Watery Pass, really fantastic pickup. Not only can you back row both Kane and Sid with that, it does bring down your agility as well. So in the case of no curse ring to be found, could be very helpful for anchoring.
Yeah, definitely. Sid, not a very fast character, so throwing that Dwarf Axe on it, as long as you don't gain too many levels, means he can still be a really good anchor even without that curse ring. As well as it looks like we picked up Cecil here in the Watery Pass, and was that Rydia there on Mount Ordeals.
Yeah, once again, team melee from the get-go here. You've got a Kane, you've got a Sid, you got a Cecil. That gives you a lot of firepower. Like you were saying, if you can get Bacchus Wines or get that Berserk online with Tella, that's going to be a really effective team.
We haven't seen maybe the best white mage yet for this party. Tella can do a little bit of healing. Rydia is 2/3 ton a white mage. So that might be a little concerning for our runners at this moment.
Frankie Bones checking the waterfall, nothing but the guards there, but we are seeing on the Sorbius side a pan as our free item from Bedware. That is really interesting because I think that's going to maybe keep our runners away from Fabul. Fabul is one of those checks that sometimes you like to do a little bit later once you get underground and try and single dip it. But if that has your access, your hook, or maybe even a darkness crystal, it may be the wrong place. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. I think with this party, which is reasonably strong, if we can find some good weapons, if the looting goes well for our runners here, then they feel confident maybe taking all the other overworld locations. Just leave Fabul to the end to see if you can find that hook, and then go ahead, because you're likely going to want to clear most of the overworld anyway. So if you can just line it up so you get to do that single check, there's a good chance you'll be able to do so. But just need to maybe find some weapons. So even say some hard bosses on Ordeals or in the Baron Inn are still very doable, and especially importantly, fast, as we're trying to get through this as fast as we can.
Indeed, indeed. Now, Sorby is picking up a full moon in the public treasury, and Troy, a very, very useful weapon. Not only quite high powered for Edge, but also will back row glitch him. And Freaky Bones showing us our last character, a Yang. So we have no dedicated white mage in the seed outside of Tella. That poses a little bit of a problem and will make the seed a little interesting. And we have our first boss.
Definitely really happy. Great, we did find a boss. We were mentioning Water Hag's free, so you kind of hope to find that in a little bit of a more challenging spot. But still, I'm sure our runners are happy to find one of our objective bosses, even if they're burning the Water Hag a little early.
Yes, free boss in just about the freest spot. So you like free, we got free for you tonight.
But yeah, definitely you mentioned that full moon is a nice pickup, because at this point we can basically back row all of these melee fighters, which is going to help a lot, as whoever is kind of your powerhouse, you can keep them in a nice safe position, as well as when you have this many melee fighters, there actually isn't enough front row slots for them all anyway, so it's definitely convenient to be able to keep them in the back row and still hitting for full damage.
It would be a little fun, though, to see a backwards party with Rydia and Tella in the front and all of your melee in the back. You're like, wait, what's going on here?
Well, we did just see a heroine row picked up there from Sorbius, so, Rydia could have some pretty decent defense stats with that on and want to be in position to hit things, so.
Indeed, and a Silk Web as well. Silk Web, obviously very, very useful for that Z fight, but can also be pretty clutch in some of the faster spots like the King, Queen, Eblan that you got to get through. So really nice pickup, especially if you don't see it in a shop. You can hang on to that all the way to the end and make your Z fight a little easier.
Yep. And good seeing Frankie Bones has also stopped here in this game, so also being the Water Hag, not be falling behind on that boss check. And it looks like Sorbius here covering some similar ground of doing looting in the Watery Pass. Definitely a nice place to do looting. There's really high tier loot here. There's the character, of course, as well. But with T Wildish, there's a decent chance of finding some really nice stuff in here.
Yeah, very interesting to see both the runners looting Miss Cave. You don't typically see runners loot this deep. I think having that Tella with exit informs it, and they're going to be rewarded with that heroine row. Both going to pick that up, and as some people in chat pointing out, very useful for that Rydia, especially if you find a nice whip for her. She can do some work on this overworld.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of physical stats on that heroine robe, so any decent weapon on her really does make her start to hit quite hard. And yeah, kind of talking about T Wildish, that does have a weighted set, so different locations, kind of the ones that are more out of the way, annoying to go to. do have better gear, and this cave happens to be one of those locations. So once you're already inside of there and didn't have to reset because you took the boss, yeah, grabbing at least one of those chests, the one right near the entrance you come in, is a usual target. And then, yeah, I think you definitely hit it there with Kella having exit. Why not finish off that looting and it working out really well for both our runners?
Yeah, the Mist Cave does have some pretty high-weighted loot for the location being such an early location, but kind of out of the way, so I think that informs the looting. Now, interesting, I had missed this, but people in chat mentioning there was a Bahamut orb sitting in the Watery Pass, so I think that makes that Rydia extremely compelling now as a character to keep.
Definitely. So Rydia can be a good character to keep sometimes as you're just looking for your anchor. She comes in very slow, so as long as you can keep her on the ground, that's useful. But with that heroine robe, so she can do some useful stuff until she has enough MP to use Bahamut. And then once she has the MP for Bahamut, she's going to be a really useful character for this team. So you actually very well might want to level her up and just use one of these other characters to be your anchor.
Yeah, T. Wildish being very giving tonight. Heroine robe, Bahamut, that full moon, in not even very highly weighted spots like the Eblan cave and castle. So I think we may see power overwhelming with this party.
Definitely, and especially for like this early portion of the game to have access to such good equipment. Yeah, we can very well see some of these boss spots, as long as they're not some of the most rudest things, get cleared up very quickly. Just need to get a few levels there on Rydia so she can make use of some of this stuff.
Oh, wow. And a Gungear Spear as well on Sorbius and Antlion. Once again, just very giving tonight. Alchemy RE streamer rolling the seed. Very kind to our runners.
That's another blue robe.
Very interesting. That's gotta be. That is it. That is a very interesting alt gauntlet because you're going to use Flame with Edge, and some of these enemies here are going to absorb that fire.
So definitely, I think all the kind of ghost-looking enemies there are going to be absorbing fire, so a little slower to get through there, as you can't just one-shot them. On Sorbius' side, though, we run into the elements here in Antlion Cave, giving out the pass as its key item. We are just running into all of our bosses here right at the start. Chat was asking for a jet seat. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we're 3 out of 5 now, just Watery Pass. No, actually, I think that's 3 out of 4. We haven't even looked at Hobbs, so a lot of good loot, a lot of bosses early. We could have a very fast one on our hands.
Mm-hmm. Of course, there always is that chance if you just run into like 6 of them real fast, and you can't find one of your last 2 there. So we're saying maybe Jet, but the seed will tell.
Sorbius seeing that Bahamut summon and thinking twice about throwing away that Rydia joining there and hopefully getting her online in Blargan sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. Did not miss out too much experience there in the Antlion Caves, so definitely not feeling too bad to come back here and pick her up.
Now, one of the really nice things about this Fabul Gauntlet in this situation is it does give you a bit more experience than the normal boss, because you're getting experience every single fight, which that Rydia you do have to get to, I believe it's 50 MP for Bahamut. So quite a nice position to run into this, get Rydia those early levels, get her up to that threshold so she can at least cast that one Bahamut very early.
Yeah, as well as a lot of the boss spots or kind of the locations we end up checking here give us those full heals too, so you can actually get some MP restores in between some of these fights. To allow Rydia to just cast Bahamut once every fight, which is probably all the Bahamut casts you're going to need to get through these fights.
Absolutely. Unless you run into the alt gauntlet and you got to get through 5 in one go. One caveat there. Oh, wow. Another boss. Karate up on Hobbs. Now, watch, we're going to have an absolutely loaded overworld and be cursed underground.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
That is the thing, is if you do find this many bosses this early, you just have fewer bosses to find, so they just become that much more sparse, and we really could just see, all right, we get 4, we get 5 done really fast, and then just nothing for the longest time. Very well, the rest of them up on the moon, and that just buried Darkness Crystal very well could happen.
Yeah, and that makes for a really interesting situation because, the boss hunt, there's a lot of boss checks. There's some kind of cheeky out of the way ones like the package check we talked about earlier. But when you knock out so many early, all of a sudden you got to think to yourself, you got to really get your routing down pat, because you've got to find those bosses. You got to find them quick, and you start thinking, how many checks do I do versus how many do I just face check?
Yeah. As well as with that pass means we don't actually have to find the Darkness Crystal if all of our bosses do happen to be very easy, very not on the moon to find. So that package check or other kind of more out of the way checks, maybe Zot 1 without the Earth Crystal. If we do find 6 of our bosses, very well could become front of our runner's mind there, especially with that pass in hand.
Ooh, Frankie Bones running into a kind of a rude plague. Not only does it get some extra turns because of the back attack, if you're fast anchored like he is with that edge, that count is going to go quick. And as you see, just barely, actually all the way down to 1 before barely getting any actions off. But gets that Bahamut off, and I think this is going to do it.
Good hit enough here. I'm not sure if he took off that heroin robe, which does look like maybe he didn't, and so that didn't hit too hard.
Yeah, that heroin robe, we were kind of chatting, very useful weapon. Gives you a lot of agility, a lot of attack stats, but really brings down your magic stats. So if you're going to rely on that Bahamut, it's not going to do very well for you.
Yep. And looks like Frank Bones will take a fight here, give a little bit of extra experience, or maybe, I see, take down his Tella. So again, if you already have a character who's knocked down, you have a target you can life up. Plague script is if anyone does not count it, he needs to cast count. So by going ahead and character dead to start the fight, you have a target you can immediately bring back to life and re-trigger that count. As well as he has the opportunity to change his anchor if he wants to maybe have Edge not be the anchor, but instead just get that first turn.
Hello with a lot of gumption, though, taking a little while to get down there. Sorbius, not being allured by the pan, is going to do that Fabul check and find a legend sword. Now, not an extremely useful key item in this flag set, but a key item nonetheless. Gets you closer to that 10 you need for the increased experience and helps that grind go down. You have a couple shops in Fabul as well. And as we were kind of talking about earlier with Attila, if you find that darkness crystal, that really makes you wonder, do I need to go do a D machine grind, and is that the right play? So it's kind of behooves you to check that, because an early darkness crystal there can give you a grind solution pretty easy.
Yeah, might have also been on Sorbius' mind of just how many bosses he's already found, that he didn't want to find a boss check that he could do quickly, just in case all of our bosses were right available from the beginning. Want to go ahead and check that out and get them done if possible, especially again with that pass in hand.
Oh man, Frankie Bones running into that very rude plague again. Having the Tella already down, able to get him up, like you were mentioning, that's going to cause Plague to recast the count, but unfortunately didn't get it off in time before everyone else does. But now gives you a whole 4 other characters to cast life on, can keep the party going, and everyone will be weak. So will make this fight a little bit longer than you'd like, but still completely doable with the situation.
Yeah. Can actually be really kind of useful when that happens, that all your characters happen to get their countdown, because you have so many targets now to get the life cast on that you just keep cycling through them one by one and are able to just safely get through the rest of the fight. As we see, Frankie Bones there is successfully through that plague fight. Definitely a rude one to run into.
Very, very rude one. And I think if I was in the same position, I would probably take a safety save after that. A lot of times people don't necessarily do that in the shrine. You're going to get a full heal there, and the boss spot is really weak, but that is a long, not fun fight to get through. So there's a couple ones in the shrine room that can get you, but so we'll see what Frankie Bones does.
Feeling confident, and we'll just go ahead and take it on. But yeah, there definitely is still, some mean bosses that if they stumble in here could result in that wipe. Sorbius here is now also heading up Ordeals, getting through his gauntlet as well, which is good, getting him those experience as well. Looks like he's also willing to allow Rydia to start getting levels, so he can make use of that Bahamut.
Ooh, excellent value on Ordeals. We find the hookup here. That is what you need to get underground. Now you've got Paladin Cecil. Now you got a fully online Tella. Really fantastic Ordeals here. And an Antlion. Unfortunately, not a boss, but a good one to see here, because it's a very punchy boss, and if you run into it somewhere on the moon or maybe the Fey March that you need to do it, you'd rather not. So good position for it.
Yep, definitely nice to kind of get one of the bosses you're happy to see taken out of the pool, as well as not one of the ones that punishes you too badly at this location. But yeah, definitely having that hook in hand is good to know, and could very well set Frankie Bones to go ahead and not do Fabul, since now he does have his way underground and could do that single dip. But there are still some overworld checks. Baron Inn is still looming large, so maybe not immediately commit to following up on that hook.
Yeah, Baron is an interesting check with a Cecil in your party. I think there's a lot of kind of discussion whether it makes more sense to try and get that Cecil online, go over to Eblan, take a trap chest or two to try and spike that crystal or Excal, that really nice holy
Mhm.
sword, or do you just do the end, get through it? I think with an Edge and a Bahamut Rydia, you can get through that relatively easily. I think myself, I'd run over to Baron, but nonetheless, very tempting to go get a big stick for that Cecil and get him hitting quick.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's both a lot of value to that, and that'll be interesting to see which ones our runners do. Going to Baron and getting it done means maybe you can do that single stop over by Eblan, do Eblan Castle, and then head straight on into Eblan Cave to do your hook route. But yeah, having a shiny stick on Cecil is really appealing. So I can also see the desire to do that.
Yeah, and I think the other situation with that as well is I don't think we've seen any kind of the more mediocre weapons like the lightsaber or ruin axe, anything like that that is useful for the Cecil. So, Frankie Bones has not checked Hobbs, so going to take the opportunity to route this in, get the good news, and get his third boss.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Sorbius having the bad news of finding this plug here, and in the situation of can he get through it before that count comes down.
Yeah, same edge in there, which generally having that fast anchor is good for this early part of the seed. Edge will get so many turns compared to the boss and is usually helpful, but yeah, just against this play can turn out to be painful. But well done there on Sorbia's side. So Frankie Bones is getting his boss here. He also has the Antlion Cave, which you didn't check, and he is in the neighborhood, and we know that is an important check to do as Elements is in there, so we'll have to see if he checks that.
Yeah, we got a fun little mirrored blarg. They were blarging into each other simultaneously. Often you get to see that. Yeah, Sorby is very well executed on that plague. I think does not have that heroine robe on the Rydia, made her Bahamut summon that much stronger. Probably picked up some time there versus Frankie Bones.
Yeah. Chat also pointing out Sorbius' use of the full moon. Full moon does do extra damage to flying enemies like Plague, so definitely useful to get that extra damage out from Edge.
Ah, indeed, indeed. That is one that I do forget about from time to time, especially arrows. Very useful against that plague as a flying enemy.
And Frankie Bones does choose to check that one chest that's on the way, going through Antlion Cave and getting the Gungnir Spear.
Yeah, so at this point, with this party, you have really good equipment. Full Moon on Edge, you can maybe use a slightly better sword. You have that Gungnir Spear. You just need to pick up something for that Cecil, and you're going to have a pretty well kitted out party. I think we'll probably see some pretty low loot numbers on this seed as a result.
Yeah, as long as you can find something there for your Cecil, I think you'll be pretty happy. And Eblan Castle does have some pretty good odds at giving out some, a really good weapon for him. At that point, yeah, you're fully equipped. You don't need to loot anything else. There, at this point, I think our runners have covered each other's tracks. Both of them finishing now, Antlion and Ordeals. Sorbius is up for Bool, but Frankie Bones will be able to now single dip it when he does head that way.
Very interesting. Frankie Bones indeed making the decision to fade the Baron in check for now to go check Eblan. Very curious. The other situation is being here, doing Eblan Castle. You're right next to that hook route. Maybe you just route in Baron. You try and anticipate a Baron key underground, put those all together in one big check. You're going to come back up above ground at some point anyways, right? So very curious to see how Frankie Bones plays this out and what decision he makes in his routing before diving down the hook route.
Yep. It could just also be he's coming to do Eblan Castle, just looking for that equipment, and we'll weave in, Baron in before heading down hook route. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit of looting at a minimum, but yeah, do we do Baron in or not? I think it's still up for a question, because it can be tricky to choose to fade that since there are two bosses there, and a boss hunt not checking two boss locations you have available to you is definitely going to loom large in the back of your mind as you're doing everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Has a key item check too, and you can pick up something relatively useful this early in the seed, something like an earth crystal, a harp that you can complete before you go underground, gives your team a little bit more experience, gives you an opportunity to check a few more bosses, especially earth crystal that routes you right into two. So sometimes making that decision can be really helpful, but sometimes that's part of the gambling of randomizer, right? You're sometimes going to get bit in the butt.
Does look like Sorbius is also interested, though, in getting some extra looting done here, and has also stopped by Eblan Castle. frankiebones using an hourglass he's picked up to make this first fight really safe and hoping to get some good equipment, as well as this fight can be pretty annoying with all those skulls getting attacks out, and then Sailman potentially putting you to sleep. Things can go sideways quickly, so just want to take it safe.
And
being
there's that
rewarded
holy sword. It is the lesser of the holy swords, but let me tell you, Nexcal will still do plenty of work for you. Exiting right out, curious if he's going to take the save and go back in, or just call it there. You got the big stick, just get running.
Yeah, you found what you came in to get, and we were kind of saying once you had that equipment, maybe you're done with looting, and frankiebones going, all right, I found what I wanted. I'm done with looting. I don't need to check anything else at this point. Sorbius choosing a different route through here, so finding a different trap chest.
Yeah, that's a different trap chest. Could very well have your crystal sword, though, and all of a sudden be the better situation. This one's a trickier one, though, but with that Bahamut, you have some really great AoE. Those black cats could be a little scary, but you know what? Little Reddy is not terrified of anything tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Those counterattacks can quickly, send your entire battle plan off plan. So being able to just one-shot everything there means you don't have to worry about that. So thank you, Bahamut. Ooh, and even though not getting much from that trap chest, Zeus gauntlets are a nice pickup.
Yeah, Artemis arrows probably not going to get too much use. I mean, technically Cecil can put on a bow, and so can Rydia. And those Artemis arrows are strong against dragons, can be very useful. Pale Dim, Wyvern, Gold Dragon Grind, maybe very late in the seed. But nonetheless, probably not with this party.
Sorbius here is checking the Excal chest now. So as long as we get through this fight, we'll also get that reward. Well, frankiebones has decided to come over to Baron Inn here and finds Mylon with his friends.
Very an interesting, if not a little bit frustrating fight in the front here, because this spot has so little HP. You really would like just a single target to bonk really quick and get through it. But all of a sudden, you got to find a solution for a little bit of AoE. Nonetheless, that edge has got flame. We'll get you through, and we'll see what the second boss is soon after watching a whole lot of draining.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of the important part. Having to watch all those drain animations means, yeah, this fight's definitely slower than it could be if you could have just bonked and been done with it.
And a little bit of speech at the end just to cap it off.
A little bit of extra HP there on the Mylon. Sorbius finding his Excal. Is he also done looting? Or no, we'll continue to see if there's anything else useful for him.
And a little bit of French vanilla and Baron Inn. The guards taking over the primary position. They don't need anyone to guard them. They'll guard themselves. But they are a little trickier. This can be a punchy spot. It has a little more life than you're used to. And you don't really, I don't think either of our runners have a mute bell. So you got to be careful when punching them, because they will do status effects to you like Piggy and Toad and Mute. So they can be a little tricky.
Definitely having cover there on Cecil can be convenient as he's in back row, take those hits. The nice part is they do not have the boss bit enabled, so we just saw there frankiebones starting stone here on Tella, which unfortunately didn't connect because stone does not have great accuracy and Tella does not have high mage stats.
And Tella is Tella, even in the center spot, which gives you a little bit more accuracy, just not going to do it. Now, Sorbius finding a second ninja sword for his edge with the further looting. So now his party very much kitted out. Gun Gear, Spear, Excal, Ninja. That's going to be a very strong melee party.
Definitely. Those are all weapons you are happy to take right to the end of the game, and they can, continue doing good damage. And even with the ability there with that full moon to keep edge back road. So.
I think that poses a question. That really is going to be very useful with the Bahamut summon, but at a certain point, it's not very useful when you get to Z and you have a Sid, you have some Artemis arrows. Maybe you pick up an Artie bow somewhere. Do you drop Rydia to take a fourth Zerker when you get ready to finish up the seed later?
Yeah, that's possible. But you might also be considering if you found an Asura and you want to use her some healing in the Z fights. That might be a possibility. But yeah, I think a lot of that kind of comes down to when do you enter your go mode, and if you say already done a grind, or if you're going to start your grind, yeah, maybe you go ahead and pick up Sid and get the levels on him instead. As well as you might also still be considering your anchor situation. If you got too many levels on that Tella, maybe you grab Sid there and throw that Dwarf Axe on him and have him be your anchor.
Ooh, that Stardust Rod in that trap chest, though, does make you want to hold on to that Rydia just a little longer. She's going to be that much more effective. Wow, once again, very giving loot in this seed. Now, Frankie Bones, I think, giving us our first look at the shop in Eblan Cave. Nice Leviathan Orb. Too little, too late, though, for this party.
Yeah, a lot of times you have that Rydia and you're real happy to see that, but when you already are rocking the Bahamut summon, not much use for Leviathan. So Sorbius here doing that full clear of Eblan Castle, which does take a bit longer, but he definitely found some nice stuff. Yeah, that Stardust Rod's a big pickup, make that Bahamut do a lot more, actually completely offsetting the magic loss from the Heroine Robe there. And the Rune Axe could also prove really useful. If we find one of those mage bosses in a late game spot, you're really happy to have that extra damage there that the Rune Axe will deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruin Axe will hit a lot of pretty difficult bosses. If you get an Astra in a punchy spot or Magnus Sisters and God forbid the Sealed Cave, that Ruin Axe will be extremely helpful for you because those bosses take a lot of damage and you want to get through them very quick.
Yeah, so definitely there was some worthwhile gear that Sorbius found there. So I think Seed will just have to tell if it's going to be how useful for him or not. We'll make up that time he spent looting it.
Ooh, and a Mob
Mm.
Bomb in the Rubicon spot. That is not a very nice boss to find there.
Yeah, you have to go through all of that HP first. Quite a late game spot for where we are in this point in the seed. And then you get all those little bombs that come out. And if you are not in a good situation to handle them, losing the fight at that point is very painful, really big time loss. So knowing what you're going to do when the bombs come out can be really important.
Yeah, once again, that Bahamut Rydia is going to pay dividends really almost as much as Excal Cecil is pulling her weight in this party.
Yeah, definitely. And the Bahamut is nice for blowing away those bombs, although MP is maybe a little bit of an issue, but I believe Frankie Bones, while he didn't buy the Leviathan Orb, did pick up at least 10 Ethers while he was in the Evelyn shop there. So being able to use those to continue just keep Bahamut casting going out could be really useful.
Yeah, taking some time to do some menuing, very good to do because that Heroine Robe was still on that Rydia, and while it gives her that agility, you really want that Bahamut to hit hard, and so we're going to take that off, equip that Strength Ring, kind of put some really nice gear on there. Now, what's interesting with Frankie Bones, did not do as much looting in Eblan Castle, but also skipped Eblan Cave as well. So going for kind of a low-kitted out party here, feeling like he's got enough strength and doesn't need to do more, whereas Sorbius has done more chess, and curious how that's really going to affect later game with damage output.
Yeah, and I believe chat's also noting that Frankie sold his crystal armor, which if he did need to get cover strats going with Cecil, well, without such strong armor, he won't be able to cover as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That crystal armor will prevent the berserk status, but is an extremely effective piece of defensive gear. So going with cover strats, you can just have Cecil take all the punches for your party and survive to see another day with a punchy spot.
So this is a spot that Bahamut lines up quite well against. You do want to kill all the dolls at once so that they do not become the big doll. And Bahamut is pretty good at doing exactly that.
Our hook route coming in multiples of six dolls, 6 bombs. very, very interesting. This seed is really playing into this party a lot. A lot of these boss spots have a lot of solutions. I think maybe the only difficult one was the Ordeals alt gauntlet with the flame and absorption, but otherwise really playing into the strengths of this party.
Playing just being rude as always in that second ordeal spot, but otherwise, yeah, the seed gave us the tools. So even when it was giving us rude bosses, we had ways to deal with them.
Now, the other tricky thing with the Mom Bomb here is the explosion phase. First off, you really got to get to it in the first place. You got to do enough damage to trigger that script to get Mom Bomb to grow and then blow up. And that explosion will do a decent amount of damage. So if you don't keep up on top of healing, that can put you in a really tricky situation afterwards. And then suddenly you've got 6 targets who are very ready to punch you, and you got to get them down. And I think, is it 2 or 3 turns, Clover, before they start exploding?
I think it's 2 punches, and chat will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, the punches themselves can be scary when you have 6 bombs doing them to you. And you're right, with that explode having already knocked you all down, if you don't have a quick solution to start killing some bombs, you're going to be in trouble even if they don't get to their explode portion of the script.
Yeah, and Frankie Bone's showing off that utility of Tella, casting Blink on Rydia to keep her up. Blink will give you a little bit of a invulnerability to those physical attacks, but once again, will not cover you for that explosion. So you got to have a solution for that once that comes up.
Yeah, so definitely Blink will be good to not die to the Mom Bomb punches, but you want to at least get rid of the heal here so she can survive that explode, which you would really like because Bahamut is a way to get through those bombs quickly.
Yeah, I almost
on Frankie Bones' mind there with Cure 2 to Rydia.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you kind of know your turn order and maybe line up a life and then a blink really quick right behind to try and get her up and ready to blarg.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think the magic power is definitely not too high in this location. Explode will do some damage. 300 should be enough to survive that.
Oh, interesting.
So,
This position is a very interesting one because the one right before it, very dangerous, extremely punchy, very low HP. This one, kind of the opposite, a little less punchy, a little less magic damage, but a lot of HP to chew through.
So, you know what another good way to deal with those 6 bombs are? Just don't see them. Just don't see them at all.
I didn't think of that.
Right, Frankie Bones looked like also wasn't thinking of that. Was sitting there on that Rydia ready to do Bahamut. But yeah, if your damage output is high enough, and you just do that extra 10,000 damage that is given to the Mom Bomb so that it can go into the the Rotten Tomato and then explode phase, you don't have to see all those extra bombs. And as we kind of noted, we have really good equipment for this party. We have a lot of power, so you just circ up. Looks like you can just skip by right past that phase and get through for underground at 33 minutes for Frankie Bones.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic execution. Very fast underground with a little bit of a rude setup, but once again, very, very good party setup. Sorbius not very far behind, about to run into that Mob Bomb, not even taking a safety save. Very gutsy, like the play. Shouldn't have any problems as well, especially with the additional equipment that he has picked up. And our runner is really keeping a tight race tonight.
Definitely, because while Sorbius is behind, he has already done the Fabul boss check. So one less thing you have to do once he does get back up above ground from being underground here. Frankie Bones did show us also the boss there at the top of the tower, which is Val, which is probably not super appealing. And so we might not see our runners go top of tower, maybe, or go into tower until maybe they have the tower key to be able to do the 2 checks there, or they just run out of other things to look at.
Yeah, not having that boss be on your list for the evening kind of makes you think twice about running up and doing that check unless you have to. Especially you have a panda in hand, you're going to get a check from Sylph. Dwarf Castle is going to have 2 bosses in it, as well as effectively 2 key items because Warp Glitch. I think you're going to leave that tower till a little bit later.
Yeah, as well as Val is kind of an annoying boss you generally don't like to fight, and I think that spot gets a decent amount of physical evade, so for your entire Berserk party, somewhat annoying. Although you could Bahamut it, because it doesn't actually end up getting magic evade.
Very interesting routing from Frankiebones, picking up a rat tail from Sheila. Looks to be going and turning in the Sheila pan right away. Maybe check that rat tail rather than complete the underworld circuit.
Definitely, I mean, especially with getting that rat tail, there's now a lot of key items you have available to check here in the overworld, and I can see that being really appealing to Frankie Bones. Maybe it was the rat tail was enough key items to push him above ground, or this was his plan from the get-go since he skipped doing Fabul.
Yeah, and Sorbius.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Sorbius threw Mom Bomb as well, underground at about 35 minutes, so about a 2-minute difference.
Yep. Which again makes a lot of sense for giving the extra looting and that bull check that he's already done. So definitely running at a really good pace, just doing a few extra things over Frankie Bones.
Now this is a really nice play. As you were mentioning a while before, on the overworld, there are a few checks that give you a free heal. Now running through the Sylph Cave to do that pan bonk will bring your whole party down to 1. So by coming back and doing the Fabul check, you're going to heal your party back up. Fight's going to be fast. You get 3 key item checks out of it. Really nice, effective routing from Frankie Bones and good game knowledge there.
Yeah, definitely good use of that, especially without having access to easy camping gear. Knowing where you can get these free heals, really useful. So well done there. Sorbius looks like he's also interested in at least starting this pan quest, and then we'll have to see if he immediately comes back above ground to finish it, or shows us some of the things that are underground, because there are quite a few unknown bosses down here. And so is there a desire to want to go check those? And we do have access to the warp spell if we head over to Dwarf Castle.
Yeah, one of the other really nice things about having Rydia and Tella, you're going to have access to warp. It's going to take you into, in fact, the sealed cave crystal room rather than the actual Dwarf Castle crystal room. So very useful extra check there with the warp glitch on. And Sheila going to give us a white shirt to start and a sad ruby. Womp womp. But key item that gives us 2, 4, 6 key items, getting us that much closer to 10. So at least some work here, but maybe not what you really were hoping to see.
Sorbius is willing to check at least some parts here of the underground, and going to head into the Fey March, which will get a key item check for free and eyes on 2 more boss locations, which, depending on how challenging they are, very well might be left for later. But if we could take them on now, another chance at a key item. Good little tech there by frankiebones, picking up his hovercraft and dropping it outside of the cave here, but heading over to turn in the pan, as that's your chance to maybe also pick up the pink tail, so you just do your double tail turn in if that happens to work out. Not in this case, and just getting us a magma key.
We can get underground now. I believe we are contractually obligated to say such a thing.
Hurrah for the underground access. Sorbius here showing us some good items in the shop here. Hourglasses, which are really nice to find before spotting these bosses in the Fey March when you are low level. About one of the few things you are looking to tackle are non-boss bit bosses. So being able to hourglass them could really work out well for Sorbius here.
Yeah, it can be really effective with that all gauntlet, but unfortunately, already have seen that and gotten through. Sorbius having a long, hard look at that Bahamut. That is effectively a free fight with a Starvale or two, but deciding against it. That said, frankiebones picking up a CPU, which is very interesting. That is one of our hitless bosses.
It is another boss, so definitely a good find there on frankiebones' side to complete that, which would get him 5 out of 7. That's kind of that mark where you're getting really close now, and you start worrying about, okay, how many boss spots do I have available to me? Could I find these last 2 right now and get into go mode? So. Sorbius here doing a little bit more shopping. Getting into more or less all the underground shops and seeing what we can find. Sirens are definitely going to be a big item for our runners. And with that adamant, it looks like in hand, we're going to go ahead and get our forge here done on Sorbius' side, while frankiebones is showing us Mega Sisters on the right. So not one of our required bosses, but one he can definitely get through. So good part with doing this forge is not only do you get the super smith here, which could be a extremely strong weapon. Yep.
Holy cow. That is a fantastic pickup for this team.
Yeah, if we didn't already have amazing equipment, well, there we go.
You were feeling maybe a little bad at only getting an Excal, but now you're like, you know what? I'm okay without a crystal sword. I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, this is probably going to work out just totally well for this team. And immediately throwing that on, yeah.
And that gives you the secondary benefit. Excal is throwable by edge, so by having that Lightbringer, now you get that one extra tool in your edge toolkit, which can be really useful for kind of a mean boss that maybe doesn't have a ton of experience. Just one throw and you're done. Set it and forget it.
Yep. I missed that. Sorbius did pick up the Asura summon, so he does have his sometimes a white mage online now. Asura providing healing 2/3 of the time when you cast it, and life 1 on the entire party 1/3 of the time, which is what you're looking for.
The RNG white mage.
But again, when you don't have access to a dedicated white mage, it's what you just sometimes have, and you'll just use it, and it might be enough to get you through some fights.
And frankiebones casting that warp, and we are seeing a twin harp. Fantastic. Another key item, a boss check, a key item check, and music, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
Whoa,
as
good heads up play there by Sorbius running into the CPU here. Typically, this is taken on by taking out the defender, so you won't have to have the CPU get healed. But as everyone's at 1 HP from his walk across those poison tiles, deciding to take out instead the attacker, so his entire team doesn't, or everyone but Cecil getting wiped out.
Yeah, maybe a really good use of that Excal. Once again, a lot of damage. And if you can line up that hit from Cecil, that jump from Kane, that throw, maybe a good attack, you can get through all of that HP. And that remedy from the defender won't drag you down too far.
Frankie Bones here. Go and go check out the rest of the underground locations that are available. So he'll be picking up his adamant rock as well here from the Fey March and see if he's interested in going ahead and doing the forge as well.
Speaking of fantastic darts, Frankie Bones showing us that our second item from Dwarf, the actual Dwarf Castle key item, was a spoon. So now that edge, really effective attacker, gives you a couple, not quite auto wins, but very close, or a really good chunk of Z's HP very early in fight. 2 quick darts, you're going to go through probably at least 15,000 damage there. So it makes you kind of wonder what you're going to do when you get to that fight. Are you going to use it early, or are you going to save it?
Yeah, especially without having that a white mage, can you find a way to not have to see any of those full strength big bangs? Might make it you feel a lot more confident going in that fight. And with Cecil hitting for as much as he will be, and yeah, the extra damage from Spoon, you very well might be able to set up a party that could do that. As well as that does put Frankie Bones is that at 9 key items, or all the way up to 10 with the adamant rock.
Now, 10 items, I do not believe we have seen sirens in a shop. Sirens being kind of your primary grind point, I would say, for this party. You'd love to see them in a shop, buy and be done with it, but you do have an edge, which gives you the opportunity to go take one of those trap chests in the Tower of Babel and sneak those off of the searchers.
Yeah, definitely. And with 10 key items in hand, you don't have to steal quite as many to be able to get a grind done. And if we could find out where that darkness crystal is, we could also have the option of doing, say, gold dragon fights, in which case you really don't need a lot of sirens to get the experience you need. And with Hourglass and Telecasting Weak, you can get through those gold dragon fights quite quickly.
Absolutely. Gives you a couple options. And, honestly, with this party, with the amount of gear that we picked up and a Lightbringer, you don't need a ton of levels either. So it's kind of nice maybe to just go steal 3, 4, 5 of those, crack those eggs, and be done with it, especially if you end up having to go to the giant anyways. You're going to pick up some extra experience. You're going to do a couple moon bosses. You may not need a whole lot of grind to really be effective going into that Z fight.
Yeah, Frankie Bones. Seeing those same set bosses in the Fey March and deciding, no, not right now. We might come back to those later. But yeah, that darkness is definitely something I think our runners do want to find. And we're running a little low here on key items. So we have the Keyless Tower, which could hold it. But we just know Val's there. We do have Twin Harp, which has an unknown boss, which is very nice during a boss hunt. But that's also a long check. If you're in this situation, you have your 2 Fey March bosses, Keyless Tower, Twin Harp. What check are you liking?
It's very interesting. I think I am very much in the Fade March camp. I am not a big fan of doing those Fade March bosses. They can be quite rude, but you do have a free one in that Bahamut. And like you mentioned, you're running out of spots, and the ones you have left are kind of long. It makes it that much more tempting. And I think it also makes it a little more tempting to at least look at what your bosses in that position, or that sparkle was, right? We've, as far as I can remember, I've only seen Plague, so there's a couple options there. Ogo would be horrific. But something like D-Lunars, you just got to get through to those breath strats. It makes it a bit of a free fight. And also with D-Lunars, with a Lightbringer Cecil, he is absolutely going to mow them down.
Cool. Frankie Bones is interested in finding out what this Super Smith will have. And so we'll also get that rewarded here. Well, Sorbius has now finished his route underground and is heading up above ground to turn in both the Rat Tail and the Pan here.
We did miss a little bit. Frankie Bones being a runner of the people and validating the seed. We had I believe it was a gas plant operator as job dwarf today.
Thank you, Frankie Bones, for checking that and validating the seed.
Ooh, that is a very nice shop. Although, once again, we have so much good gear. It would be really nice with maybe a T Pro flag set, but T Wildish, it has done all of the work. And so you just kind of look at it and be like, I'll save my money.
That's nice, but there's still things we want to buy. I think we're noting like Sirens would be nice to buy. I don't believe we've seen Bacchus wines for sale yet either, and that would be another thing this team would like to buy a large stack of.
Yes, we have not seen that. And at this point, the only gated shop we have left that could contain those is that naming way shop up on the moon. So, another thing to really look for that darkness crystal for. You've seen Eblan Cave, you looked at all your underground shops, and some of those really important items like those Sirens and Bacchus wines are surprisingly absent.
So Frankie Bones from the options we discuss likes Keyless Tower here, and Sorbius flying back underground. Looks like might be going to Fey March there, which definitely some harder spots to get through. But there is the possibility of 2 checks there, as we haven't actually seen what is that Sparkle. It might actually be a boss he could take on. So
Indeed.
There.
Chat pointing out we actually did see Bacchus wines. Turns out they were in Tamra. So this party is going to be absolutely deadly with those.
Yeah, exactly what you want to have for this party, with only Tella being able to cast Berserk, being able to just have all your very, very strong fighters being able to Berserk themselves will let you get through even very challenging boss locations.
Getting a bit of divergence, and this is a really fun divergence, and I think is really going to make the difference here. Potentially, we've got Frankie Bones doing top of tower and that Val, and we have Sorbius deciding to take on the Fey March bosses. This team, Fey March can be rude. It's got the firepower to get through it, and like we were discussing, just toss up a couple Starvels, Bahamut's free. You do have 2 key item checks from the Fey March, but they are case summon checks, which have a lower rating than a K main check coming off the top of tower. Oh, extra blargy down in the Fey March.
Yeah. But Sorbius here does look like getting Starveils up. I'm not sure if set battle speed low, just in case it was Wyvern here, just for safety, but being able to get 2 of those up will keep 2 characters alive, and so being able to throw out some life potions may bring some other characters back up, and likely having, Zesso, who will swing really hard here, get going, might be able to get through this fight. I think a lot of it's going to be, once those nukes come out, who do they target?
Oh, yeah, and that Lightbringer Cecil is going to be very angry at you killing his friends, and he's going to do a whole lot of work at killing you.
Yeah, never mind. You don't have to worry too much when you're doing 4K there with Cecil. You'll get through even a Wyvern at that spot in no time flat. So, well done there by Sorbius on just another set of Argus arrows, though.
Yeah, wow, a lot of arty arrows there. Now, Frankie Bones menued through that so fast, I did not see what Val gave, but reset out of it, so must not have had value.
Yeah, and looks like Frankie Bones here does prefer as you were kind of noting, the actual key item location checks, which do have a bit higher chance of containing an actual key item versus these case summons. So Twin Harp is the next location, which also is nice because this is an unknown boss. So.
Yeah, 2-for-1 deal here. And, I think this could be really interesting. We haven't found an Earth Crystal. If this is exactly Earth Crystal, that is extremely useful. You just have some fantastic routing. You're right here next to Tamra, and you can route right in. So, maybe a really heads-up play, because it could end up giving you a nice pathway through what you're trying to get done, and 2 more boss checks.
Or if it is that Darkness Crystal, a lot of, the remainder of the seed more or less is just opening up for our runners at that point. Although it does leave the choice of, do you do that Zot 1 check even without the Earth Crystal, just in case it is one of your bosses, if you have your hands on the Darkness Crystal?
Yes, the play made famous by Rex Banner. So much so it was named after him. All right. Bahamut is down. Let's see what we got. We have a tower key now. That's an interesting one. Sorbius has not been up the tower, and I think that's really going to drive him up that tower. Now, thank you very much to chat pointing out that Val was carrying just another Gungear Spear. It was a full-on Zonk, so not going to have value there. But that tower key, once again, another boss and another key item check.
Yeah, I very strongly see this pushing Sorbius to check the tower. And yeah, sure enough, exactly where he heads. Frank Bones here going ahead and doing Virus's own party. When you're in this portion of the fight, all you want to do is end the fight as fast as possible. And so if that is just taking out your own team, that's the approach you go for.
Fortunately, Tella, once again, cannot get it down. But you will be killed by this first volley. You won't have to watch the week, so it makes it at least a bit shorter.
Did not get to the weak cast. But with the Dark Elf phase down, we are getting to the music phase here.
Yes, indeed. Our bedward gave us a key item and now is going to save our behinds by playing us a little tune. One of the nice things about the randomizer, this tune is in fact randomized and not vanilla. So we never know when it's going to be. A lot of fantastic work done by community members. So we're going to zip our lips and let you all enjoy.
Enjoy.
Well, speaking of that Lightbringer, those D-Lunars, very, very weak to a Holy Sword. So just let Cecil hit things.
It turns out to be a very good strategy. And reward it with a Baron Key, which is a nice actual reward here, as it does provide us opportunity to get more key items and 2 unknown boss locations. We did see Dark Elf, I think it was, at the first boss location, so not one of our objectives, but 2 unknowns in Baron Inn, and as well as 2 possible key item checks.
Turns out Dark Elf left a mimic of himself behind in his cave and left the key there and went and ventured over to Baron. I have a feeling frankiebones is going to route that in immediately. Like I said, two more checks of bosses. You're going to get a K main, a K summon check. There is a lot of value behind that Baron key on this flag set, and it is almost an immediate do when you pick it up.
Yeah. And definitely with going to these checks, it does continue the divergence here between our 2 runners, as Sorbius will almost certainly fall up here on this tower key, well inside of the tower. And so if that leads to the value, it might be a while before frankiebones makes it over here.
Another Sparkle. That's not going to have value, unfortunately. Oh, and quite a rude boss to see here now. I think... Oh, yeah, Ogo Pogo
Okay.
for rude boss to see here. Automatically going to take half your health.
That one always, just kind of stops your heart for a second there when you see Ogo in this spot, which is, wait, did I heal? Do I have enough HP to survive? Because normally you treat the Super Cannon Room as just a free fight, but Ogo is one of those bosses who can just actually, if you especially did top of tower first, which is pretty common, and came out of that fight a little hurt, can just wipe there and lose likely both those fights and have to start over.
Yeah, and that spot can be tricky as well, because once you're underground and doing these checks, more than likely you are going to be slow anchored. That's what you typically want to do. The tower room has a very low agility, so if you're slow anchored, it's going to get quite a few turns. So I have kind of run into that room before as a runner with a slow anchor and taken a few more punches than I anticipated. So that Ogo getting off both of its ways, but thankfully we've got a nice strong Cecil, so didn't see anything else and got through.
Yeah, I do have to actually leave the tower to see if we get value from this tower key. But we do know the boss did not provide it, so we're just hoping for something good here for the key item for Sorbius. Well, frankiebones is through the first boss here in Baron Castle, and will be showing us the second, and then a long walk down to the garbage for the key item check.
Oh, and there is your value. That is a very spicy Golbez there. You are now in a really interesting position. You only need one more boss for go mode.
Yeah, this is that period where, especially again, pass in hand, you really start thinking, do I check that package? Just need
Yeah, no,
one more boss to enter go mode.
yeah, that's really interesting. There are still a few more checks now. Sorbius finding a Luke key from that tower key. Not a very useful item, but as we are getting through all these boss locations and slowly whittling them down, that is one more. Also kind of a cheeky check because you've already got that key item from doing the warp glitch. So it's strictly a boss check and a really long run. But it has definitely had value and paid off before. So you're starting to wonder to yourself, when do you do that cheeky check? Do you keep doing your key checks looking for the darkness crystal, or do you have a pass burning a hole in your pocket? You just need one boss and you're gonna go.
Yeah, definitely. Although very much like Sorbius' play here, I'm choosing not to immediately check in that. Having the Twin Harp, which is both a unknown key item and an unknown boss, does look a lot more interesting to him. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out first, which we do know get the Baron key, which is leading to some value here in Gobez. And
Yeah,
while we are quite powerful, the Gobez fight does always take a while to get through.
Yeah, and this spot does have a surprising amount of magic power. Kanazo doesn't do any magic attacks, so it's interesting they added so many in. But that tends to be the situation with these boss spots in Final Fantasy IV. Is whatever they don't do, that is the higher stat. So you find some really surprising interactions in the randomizer with bosses that you don't anticipate.
Yes, especially seeing with some very punchy moon bosses. But it looks like we're getting an encore here of Twin Heart music, and so we'll be quiet while we all watch and also see what we get out of the Baron garbage can here. Enjoy.
Wow, picking up an earth crystal from that garbage can.
Yeah, you can definitely see frankiebones there stopping, considering. All right, I do have the Earth Crystal. Do I want to go ahead and do the Basement Throne, or do I want to follow up on this? And then changing his mind on that and going back for the Basement Throne.
Yeah, you kind of want to at least check that while you were right there. But, it's really exciting to pick up that Earth Crystal. You're going to get 2 boss checks out of it, another key item. You're really hurting for that Darkness Crystal. I don't blame him for getting in the airship and taking off and getting real excited for that before thinking to myself, wait a minute, one more to go.
Although, you do the Earth Crystal, and it does send you back over here to Baron after, so you could just check it after. And it is 2 bosses in the Tower of Zot versus your 1 down here. Although, a much longer walk to start seeing those bosses, so.
Ooh, not one of our bosses, but a very free boss in this location with the King Queen of Eblan. And sure enough, frankiebones going to sit through this and actually take this fight on. Once again, that Darkness Crystal is really elusive. So going to take the opportunity to get another key item check.
Yeah, I think that was almost certainly what is getting frankiebones to stay for this. He was going to check the boss, see if it was one of our boss hunts, and when it wasn't, but it was such a free fight, and knowing Darkness Crystal was still out there, does make it valuable enough to sit through this fight. If it was, say, a hard boss, maybe we go ahead and reset and do that Tower of Zot instead.
Yeah, getting later in the seed, it starts to become an interesting proposition where you start doing your face checks and where you start doing your value check, or what you continue to do value checks on, right? We've kind of talked about waiting with K summon and K main. This is a K summon spot, so it does have lower weighting, but that doesn't mean it won't have a key item. So it's interesting that you choose to fight this here, because sometimes you could just turn around and go right up to Zot and have a greater chance of finding value there. But
sometimes it has Darkness Crystal.
Sometimes you make the right play and you feel like a genius. I think that really begs the question, is frankiebones going to go Zot or just go right to the moon with only one more boss to do?
Yeah, both those seem like very appealing options because really, really high chance of finding one of your two required bosses up there on the moon because there's so many boss locations up there. But some of them are a pretty far walk. You have to get down to the bottom of the moon to do the majority of those checks. You have to go through the Lunar Whale cutscene. I can see a lot of reason for doing Tower of Zot. I can also see a lot of reason going for the moon. Both are really strong plays, and I think potentially, yeah, frankiebones going for this. Sorbius, if he gets into the same decision, could easily make the other one, and that can make a big difference here in the race still.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. You know, the other argument for the Earth Crystal is you are going to absolutely plow through the HP in that spot because you are so powerful. You can get through both those checks relatively quickly, set up a save scum outside Mysidia. But frankiebones being way too tempted by all those boss checks on the moon is going to go ahead and do that play first.
Yeah. Could also very well be frankiebones is trying to decide what he needs to do to grind, get sufficient levels here before he can take on Z, even if he did get that last boss, and the moon might have access to what he needs to get that grind done. Or
like you mentioned,
the giant, through the Lunar Whale.
Yeah, like you mentioned, if we find those sirens there, you already have hourglasses, you have weak on Tella, you can get through some gold dragons relatively quickly in the Bahamut Cave or in the Lunar Subterrain, and this party doesn't need a lot more to really be effective. You just need that little bit more to get you going.
Yeah, definitely. Again, really, really powerful gear here. So you're right, just a handful of levels would mean you don't need to do a lot of gold dragons there, and you'll be happy with your power and go clear out whatever you need to on the moon and take on Z. Or, well, maybe the moon. I said very high chance here of our bosses being up there. But again, rando will rando, so they might not be up here. Very well could be both of them, maybe just hanging out on the giant. Ooh,
Well,
no
one thing
siren.
one thing we do know is not here is that is Siren, so you do not have an easy grind available to you. Now, you've got a few other options, though. You've got the Ribbon Room. That will be a cool 200,000 experience unless you get an unfortunate roll on a boss. So still some opportunities to pick up some experience without those Sirens. So real interesting situation, how you're going to really set that up and solve that situation for how ready do you feel for Z?
Yeah. Good tech there on Sorbius' side. Bridia not being hit by the paralysis, and so just being able to time up there the Bahamut summon after the Devours, and not even getting to see the cure go off on Cecil. So well done to
Yeah,
get through that Gomez fight very quickly.
yeah, really heads up play on that one. You do have that opportunity. There's a very small window between when Shadow takes off and Golbez starts to launch and spells at you, where you can get some damage out and line that up absolutely perfectly on Sorbius' side.
Very well done. We'll have to see if Sorbius is willing to go ahead and check out the basement throne, or we'll find this Earth Crystal just too tempting and head on over to the Tower of Zot and show us some new parts of the seed. Looked like that was Bigan hanging out down at the bottom of Cave Value, which is, a fight if you don't need to take, you don't want to take. That spot is punchy, and Bigan has lots of body parts to punch with.
Yes, he will punch not only with his two arms, but body blow you. So absolutely not going to take any time with that Bigan. And also very glad it is not on the list of bosses, and you can just wholesale ignore that and go for the Lunar Subterrain.
Now, here with one boss remaining, what's your order? Do you like the top-down approach or bottom-up?
Ooh, I think I'm going to go bottom up here. You've got 3 very quick boss checks. It puts you right next to Z, so you can just walk on down, maybe even throw a little bit of swag and go for the swag walk if you're feeling comfortable. frankiebones is skewing that, though, going with the top down instead.
Yeah, I think both very good approaches, and I can see going either way. This one's a lot closer, but yeah, there is only one. We're a much longer walk to get to the bottom, but yeah, a lot more bosses down there. So both
Sorbius.
very strong plays, and let's see if it pays out.
Yeah, Sorb is doing the very heads-up play of taking this fight as well. Once again, needs some value and going to be well rewarded from this. Not being tempted by the Earth Crystal and probably going to be very pleased. So once again, I think it becomes a situation of, do you chase that Darkness Crystal and go for the statistics there? Or maybe do you feel a little behind and you're thinking to yourself, that may be what my opponent did, so let me do something different and hopefully get lucky.
Yeah. Or even with that darkness and maybe not going to the moon, we were talking about places to experience. Giant is a place to get some experience. Both there's the D machine grind option, or you have 10 key items. If you just clear out both bosses on the giant, that's a lot of experience.
Well, that's a fantastic spot.
And if one of those two bosses is your required boss, you now have your crystal and your pass. So it's fine that you're still down on the blue planet.
Very much so. And, we still haven't seen Dark Imps as well. That could be a nice, easy fight through. Elements can be a little tricky. There's a ton of HP to get through, and we have not seen the turtle yet. So I don't want to jinx our runners, but that is a little scary prospect.
That definitely is something to be worried about, because, that is a mean fight for sure to run into at the element spot. The wave attack being linked to your current HP, and that spot has all the HP.
I think the highest amount next to maybe Z. Next to definitely Z, I should say.
Yeah, in fact, I think actually a little more.
Yeah, Sorbius not being tempted by that Earth Crystal. Very interesting. Going to also take the Moon play. Maybe potentially a giant play, but I think if you're fading Earth Crystal, you've got to be going Moon.
Yeah, again, there's just so many bosses up there. It does do that. And so seems like a really appealing play, as well as, grind is still in our mind. So does he want to see if he can find those sirens, which we happen to know are not there. Speaking of sirens, though, frankiebones has popped one and is taking on a gold dragon fight here.
I was going to say that
one way
starting
to kit. Yeah. Oh, go for it.
Oh, I apologize. I was going to say the starting kit does come with, I believe it's just one lonely siren, and it gives you the opportunity, where are you going to use that? A lot of runners usually take that once they get underground, get that little pop of experience, but frankiebones has been holding on to that tight and using this opportunity to get a nice chunk of experience and get a lot of levels on his team.
Yep, able to roll 1 or 2 sirens from that starter kit, and you're right, a lot of the time it can be nice to pop the second you're underground here, but having held on to those, in fact it looks like 2, or you found another one somewhere else, is going to provide a ton of experience here, and those hourglasses making what could be a somewhat tricky fight very safe for this team.
Sorbius, gonna do the typical play here. Gonna check Bahamut Cave. Bahamut Cave being the one spot up here on the moon where you do get to see the sprite. Gonna get the bad news, unfortunately. Will be curious. I think I remember Sorbius using one of his sirens on Ordeals to get Cecil up and going right after the shrine. Probably still has one more. You can use it here to get gold dragons as well. But looks like just gonna take that exit and get out of here and head on over to the subterrain.
Definitely. Chat noting not on frankiebones side, not knocking down Tella here, so allowing him to gain all those levels as well. So I don't think we saw a curse ring for either of these, so you might be getting actually a little fast here for your anchor.
Yeah, I think the easiest play is just to have as low as agility as possible, kind of get all your other characters up to RA1. That'll be great. But, you do have some agility manipulating gear that is out there that can give you the opportunity. Z working off of multiples of 14. So maybe you just take the opportunity with your team, see who has maybe 14, 28, or 42 agility, and set your party up that way instead. And just eschew having to, once again, get some sort of item to bring him down or knock down Tella. Spend time doing that.
Yeah, definitely does take extra time to do that, and we do have a lot of power in this team, so maybe we'll not worry about having the perfect agility set up.
Hello, Turtle, and goodbye, Turtle.
At least it's not at elements, but again, it's not the boss we need, and frankiebones seems very much just here in face check mode.
Oh, and there it is.
Rewarded for doing so, finding Ruby here in the ribbon room. Also another good source of experience.
Yeah, fantastic. Nice little shot in the arm before going. Now, I can't remember what your magic is in this spot. You're plenty fine. So Rubicon doing has a counter script that anytime you do the physical fight command against him, he will cast Fire 2 on you. So you set up that Bacchus on Cecil, and as you can see, doing jumps, darts instead, going to stick with Bahamut to try and get away from that. Not only does a decent amount of damage if you're in a high magic spot, which this is not, but will slow you down too.
Yeah, exactly. Not too high of magic, kind of middling, and yeah, kind of low actually for endgame spot. So the Fire 2 not too scary, but yeah, all those animations are a little slow, so anyway you can see less of them. Just only attack your strongest characters, jumps, Bahamuts. Very nice play here by frankiebones to try to get through this fight as fast as possible.
Now Sorbius not too far behind. I think it could be in a tricky situation if he checks the Crystal Sword altar first. That does slow you down, but if he goes past that and comes down here, it's going to be a really tight race. Both teams are set up pretty well. Shouldn't have a problem with this Ruby. Gets a nice shot in the arm with experience, and we could see some side-by-side Z fight tonight.
Oh, definitely possible here with these two runners. Although Sorbius hasn't done or popped a siren yet, so he's missing. Ooh, and is heading towards the Crystal Sword altar, as you noted.
And now we say, ooh, it could be the Octomom, which be a really interesting play. We still have not seen that boss, and we still have that spot as well. So, I think I've seen other more randomized things happen. So we'll cross our fingers for Sorbius here.
Yeah, definitely. That would really help out Sorbius here finding the other missing boss for the check. Otherwise, definitely putting him a little behind your frankiebones, who now does have that crystal in hand and is done here in the Lunar subterrain. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
There it is. That is our other missing boss here. Sorbius found the alternate route to Z.
Late night hot takes here on... let me see if I got those lottery numbers here. Oh man, very interesting. Now I believe it is faster from the lower positions to walk down to Z, but frankiebones knows he's got a pass and looks like he's made the decision instead to fly back to Earth, fly over to Toria, and turn that pass in instead, with maybe a quick stop in Mysidia. Did leave that Tella up and is maybe looking for an anchor now.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were kind of noting Sid maybe with that Dwarfax will be a good anchor because we got no real levels on him, so he's coming in at near his base agility, which is 9. So throw that Dwarfax on. He's at a base Rydia level, or base Rydia level 1, which would be 4 agility. That's plenty good to anchor with. Even with a few levels, if we kept him around at 10 or 11, that's still fine with the Dwarfax.
And I'm loving that Sid is going to be the alpha and omega of the seed. Start us off and is going to end us off. Now, Sorbius not as high a level here. Maybe still needs a little bit of grinding, so that does make it a little more difficult. Has Crystal in hand. With a Lightbreaker, you can do some really good damage, and if you time your nerfs right in that Z fight, you can maybe get through it, but you don't have a good white mage. So I think that makes it a little more troublesome. You're starting to think like, what is my path here? Do I need to grind? What is my grind? Or do I feel behind and I just, go right for Z and hope that I can execute really well?
Yeah, Brandon Buns here, not immediately heading for Z, so explains even more why he wanted to come back on Blue Planet. Felt like he needs some more Bacchus wines, doing a little more shopping here, picking up some cures. Again, you don't have guaranteed healing here with your Rydia Asura, so picking up just some extra bit of cures as could be really important here on getting through that Z fight. Sorbius does decide he wants a little bit of extra experience here before taking on that Z, though, and will pop his own Siren and take on some Gold Dragons.
Yeah, fantastic knowledge there to remember. It can be really tricky. You check a lot of bosses throughout the seed, and it's been a while since you've done that, and you've been processing a lot, your boss strats and everything like that. So very heads up to remember you have the Cure 3s there as an option, and that's going to make your fight easier. But Frankie Buzz heading over to Toria and going to probably be showing us who is going to be our final boss.
Oh, and Frankie Buns did pick up the Asura wherever that was available, but just waiting until now to make use of it. So we'll have a 2/3 silver white mage here.
This is going to be a really tight race now.
Yeah.
Now, once again, we did not find those sirens, so or any more sirens. So you only have one. That's not a ton of levels for Sorbius, but warping out and looks like maybe going to do some shopping as well. Very curious to see what his path is.
The warp mode could also be, if you don't feel too confident on your Z fight, you might want to have that save right next to the pass room. So if you do have to do it a second time, you're able to do so. So that might also be what's going through Sorbius' mind here if he's not doing shopping. But it does look like we will see both our runners here in that Z fight.
Indeed. And I'm seeing some Z flags. It is really late. I'm on the west coast of the United States. It is midnight. It is sleep time. Is that what we're chat's trying to give us a hint about?
That must be. Thank you, chat. You're very considerate here, suggesting we should be thinking about going to. No, wait, that's not right. That's not it. So, Zeromus is, randomizer. We like to randomize things, but Zeromus he's just a really mean boss. He's too big. He's too bad. We can't put him anywhere else. Zeromus will always be here at the end of the game, but this is a randomizer, so we need to randomize something. So, Zeromus has a huge pool of randomized sprites to pull from, and that gets us our Z flag here, which leads to one and sometimes multiple questions, which Beauty and Discovery, if you'd like to lead us into that.
Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
Yeah, nice. And then some other questions of his cute butt. Is that a hat? Is it a cute hat? A few other things. We'll have to just see what we got today. And Sorbius not far behind here on frankiebones and getting into this Z fight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're going to have side-by-side Z fight. frankiebones is going to have to have excellent execution to keep this head start here, but this is going to be a really exciting fight.
Definitely. We do have a lot of power here on both these teams through the equipment, a few less levels than Sorbius' side, but still definitely enough with all this good equipment to get through this Z fight. So definitely going to be still really exciting to see if you can get through this faster. Potential difference could also be battle speeds here. Could make a difference if one is running at a faster battle speed.
And thank you to chat. I was just going to ask Clover. I am not familiar with the sprite, but chat pointing out that this is from Final Fantasy XI.
Thank you, chat. I also had no idea who this was. Bones there getting a counter nuke onto his edge, who is able to survive it, thankfully, and will be able to keep doing out some damage.
Yeah, that counter nuke, it can be a little scary. Normally you're going to set up, you're going to hit Z with a spell, nerf that damage, but you get a bad target there, and it can make for a bit of a rough setup. So, frankiebones getting a good roll there, that it hit edge, so that he stays up rather than, say, Rydia, or maybe our chemist of the seed, Sid, who's throwing those Cure 3 pots.
Yeah, and definitely helping out because that allowed Edge to dart out that X-Scowl, as you noted, however long ago at this point in time, for a nice 7k points of damage. Going to get frankiebones through this fight very fast with those type of damage levels. Sorbius here is coming in with a slightly different party. Did keep his Tella here, who is a lower level for sure than frankiebones' Tella was, who might be sufficient here with Anchor, and can actually cast, as we see here, Cure 4. Not the best Cure 4, but Cure 4. Oh, though it looks like a Star Veil there.
Yeah, unfortunately, not the best target. Did get a good roll on that nuke as well, hitting the Cecil, who absolutely can take that damage. But both of these runners have their team up and running, doing quite a bit of damage. This is going to be a real fast Z fight for both of them.
Yeah, definitely. As we kind of see, Zerkers with this good of equipment can really make sure we're Z fight, and we're just seeing all that damage going through. frankiebones rolling the Asura and gets a heal.
Good luck. I've as a runner, I have never really tested my luck with that Asura. It is more than once bit me with a life one, and I don't know, maybe I just can't forgive.
Yeah, it can definitely happen, and it is painful when you are trying to get through the Z fight and just rolling those life ones and just spirals out of control. It definitely makes the fight a lot more nerve-wracking otherwise. And we do have rocks here on frankiebones' side, and his team is looking healthy with that Cure 4, so should be able to close this one out.
That Z hanging on for dear life, but not going to be a match for that Lightbringer. There is the boom crack hiss. GG's to frankiebones, our winner tonight, taking Z down first in this dueling fight. Very fantastic run, well executed, great race from them.
Definitely very well played there by frankiebones to get through this seed in very fast space and cleanly get through that fight where we weren't too sure if the levels would be in there, although the equipment power was definitely there. Sorbius showing on his side though, similar, same type of equipment, being able to also make good work here of his Z.
Yeah, should not be very far behind at all. Very tight race here. Both had very fantastic kitted out teams that were, going to not have a problem there. And once again, a very similar situation with Iridia kind of sitting there, holding tight, maybe queuing up an Asura, but seeing rocks on Sorbius' side as well.
Yeah, with these very high HP characters, seeing those rocks with the damage you're dishing out, you feel safe at this point that you have the fight under control. And sure enough, there is the flash. Sorbius also takes out C. Very well played by him.
Absolutely, GG's. Very close race. Absolutely well executed from both of our runners. Final time.